Boom, we're here, Central Park. All right, I'm in NYC, you guys. I'm actually in New York. This is not a fake backdrop. There's actually horses and carriages behind the camera that we're shooting right now.
Clickety clap.
So with infamous, the legend, Gary Ajene of T-Shirt Help Desk. And yeah, so when we first met, I asked you at the end of the interview what piece of advice you would have. So you give us 2 gems. So what other advice beyond those 2 stellar pieces of advice would you have for a new brand that's launching?
Okay, so I'm gonna say that, and this is kind of counterintuitive, but you can't be everything to everybody. I see some people, they come and they want to start a brand, and I've heard people say it, I want everybody to wear my stuff, which is a very novel idea, but you know what, in terms of getting your brand popping, it doesn't work like that. If you think that like some grimy hip hop guys are going to be into in the beginning the same group of people as like old school Abercrombie and Fish heads, it's not going to work. You really need to narrow down on your core target audience and the type of people who you want to make that brand for, right? And then give it to them as best you can and let them fall in love with it, right? And then from there, if your brand, hopefully it will, get popping, other people will see it and decide that they want it. Like for instance, I see people wear Billabong, right? That's a like a hardcore like surfer. People wear Billabong who don't even surf, you know what I'm saying? Some of these like Pink Dolphin and other stuff, like kind of hip hop brands, you see regular people who, you know, who wear it. So find a core target audience, right? Hit them hard, get your brand popping with them, and if you build it, they'll come. That's my advice. You can't be everything to everybody.
That's a great point. So like if you could pinpoint a certain group and blow it up with them, now you have that level of awareness at least, and you could build from it.
And my second bit of advice,
oh please,
is once you figure out who you want your brand to be, what group, subgroup, subgenre, whatever, you then want to find a person who represents that brand, not too famous, but a person on the internet who represents that brand, and see if you can get them to be your influencer and pay them to wear your stuff, right? Someone in between 10 to maybe 100,000, not the $1 million people, not the million sub or follower people because they're too expensive. Somewhere in between 10,000 and 100,000 followers, get them to be an influencer or get a few of them, and I think that's the 2 more gems. So I gave y'all 4 gems.
Yeah, 4 total count. So I'm just gonna add a little bit to that because I love those answers. So on that second one, yeah, people always look at the most visible influencers and say, oh, I can never afford them. But I'm like, are you crazy? There's like probably someone who's an influencer for like peanut butter or something like that. That's every single category of anything you can find is gonna have someone, and you should look at micro influencers. By the way, I consider myself a micro influencer. By the time we're shooting this, still at like 25,000 subs. But there's many different levels of people which you can approach, and they'd be very happy to work with you. Any of sponsors I've worked with, continue to work with, or have worked with in the beginning, I'm very happy to work with them because they recognize the work that you're doing and it's grassroots. And so, you know, you can look at a plethora of people to help push your brand. That's not the top guys that you look at.
Yeah, and that's why I said don't even think about the million people, from 10,000, 50,000, 100,000. And sometimes those people will do it for free clothes, right? You know what I'm saying? So you just really never know. So and it doesn't hurt to ask. Sometimes they flatter that you would even ask. So that's the gem I can drop for you.
Okay, and then I'm gonna go back to that first one real quick. You can't be everything to everybody.
Yeah.
So you and I have had a lot of I'm gonna start a clothing line pitches thrown at us, or we're a part of it. If I say who's your demographic and they say everyone, that is like end of meeting.
I hear all the time. All the time. They always, not everybody, but they always say, oh, we for everybody.
Yeah, that means to me you didn't do your due diligence to look into demographics or like a key market or target market for your brand, right?
Yes.
So that's one thing. Another thing that I want to add to this great point that you're bringing out, I'll give you an example. So big shout out to Layla and Ashley. I love you girls. And so these two girls are both TikTokers. They have huge followings, and they both talked to me about a brand that they had that was called Recovery Apparel. So both of them have a very public story of being recovering addicts, and it's a great success story. You know, I love that they're successful. And so with them, what I said in our first meeting is that might be too much of a down niche. Like that might be too tight of a demographic. So that's the only case study where I would zoom out a little bit. So the case study that I then brought to them is maybe something like what Randall does with Live Fit. So with Live Fit, you could talk about health. It can encompass being a recovering addict, but on the other end, it could be an extreme athlete. It can be like a competing athlete, MMA, boxer, anything of that sort. So it runs a gambit, but you still have your audience selected. And they did really well with their brand, but people would ask all the time, can I buy your brand? I'm not an addict or anything, I just like your brand. And so that's the only case study where I would zoom out a little bit, but all of that has to do with picking your niche, finding an audience first.